Um, we're going to jump in. We're going to jump really hard. But I want to encourage, as we go through this, um, I want you to be asking of yourself, how am I showing up? What am I doing? What is my culture right now? What do I want it to be? What is my ideal scene, if you will? What does that look like? And if I had my ideals, can I design them? Can I do it? So the goal of this whole training, and again, we're going to do this in bite-sized chunks, so I'm not going to throw it all at you. But the goal of this training series truly is to equip you as business owners with the mindset and tools to design a high-performing culture by aligning every stage of the employee journey with the science of motivation. If you've spent any time with me, you know that I love my data. And I am not going to tell you what to do based on the way that I feel you should do it. I'm probably going to have a lot of data to back up why I feel the way that I feel. But by the end of this training will help you intentionally build a culture that delivers today's results while preparing your team to thrive in tomorrow's uncertainty. Last week we talked about uncertainty in the workplace when we talked about uh, leaders eat last. But we're going to do this in a way that we equip you with the resources and the research, and also at the end of it, we're going to land the plane with practical systems that can implement immediately. So that is the goal. Hopefully, if I can get a amen, hallelujah, happy Thursday, something in the chat to let me know that you guys are all good with the goals that we're setting off to accomplish over the next four conversations. I'd love to see that. Um, but let's go ahead and jump in. And who would go for a sprint without stretching out? So let's go ahead and stretch our new muscles with some data. So I have a saying, when in doubt, stretch it out. But we want to do that to gain an edge on our competition. I very nerd-like put together an acronym, but to get the edge: engage, define, grow, and excel. So engage. Companies with highly engaged employees outperform peers by 21% in profitability. How freaking cool is that? If you didn't have to generate one extra dollar in the next 12 months, but you knew that if I got my people right, I could generate $2 extra for every $10 that I generated. I think I could get some alignment on that one. Define. A strong onboarding process improves new hire retention by 82%. If you are like me, you would raise your hand on this one, but I do not enjoy the recruiting process. And it's my job, but it's probably the most taxing emotionally, because we have people that need to do jobs inside of our business to get us to goals that we've set out on. If I could tell you this is going to solve 8 out of 10 of your challenges if we just have a strong onboarding process for you. Grow. A structured candidate experience improves quality of the hire by 70%. I often will refer to this as good sushi, or good steak, bad sushi interviewing. When you don't have a plan going in, um, I have done interview training for just under 10 years now. And what I will tell you is that nobody trains you on how to be a hiring manager. I have yet to have a client that said, hey, I went through my new hire training on how to hire and engage new employees when I took over this management role, or I started this business, and now I'm just trying to fine tune it. I have not come in contact with that yet. I'm still hopeful. But I can tell you that when you have a structured cadence of events. It's uniform. It is real, it's authentic, but it's structured. I'll tell you, in the last 6 months, we've hired a couple of new team members, and I will tell you that the comfort level that comes from my side, but also the feedback that I get from candidates, whether we hire them or not. Most recently, we were hiring for a sales role, and uh, one of the best compliments that I can get is one, the job description feels like it was written as a story to me, and I just got to enter it. The other thing is that when a candidate, whether it's sales or HR or whatever role, it's more of a manager style role, and their experience in the candidate journey is to a point to where we get to that second or third interview in the process, and it's, we open it up to conversation, and multiple times I have gotten, I don't know if I'm going to get this job, but if I take nothing away from it, I'm taking every one of these touch points that you've provided over the last 2 weeks away. I'm going to implement this in my next role. That's pretty cool. When you have made somebody feel so comfortable in your candidate journey that the natural next step is either for them to take that next step and start in that role if they're a great candidate for your environment, or they're going to graciously and acknowledge that they're going to steal your process. I love that. So, how do we do that? With the insight of helping our people excel. Managers who set clear goals during one-on-ones see 3.5 times higher engagement among team members. I think this is a powerful piece to stop and just acknowledge that as business owners, things can get heavy, they can get busy, and I will tell you that I have implemented this more than probably 500 times at this point, but introduced managers to one-on-ones. And when things get heavy, things get busy, things get just a little bit chaotic, and they feel more like a firefighter than a project manager, one-on-ones are the things that fall off. I would encourage each one of you, as you are on this training, you're trying to look at ways to be a better leader. Once you've implemented one-on-ones, just like if you implement a new relationship that you're invested in, you wouldn't all of a sudden stop showing up for that relationship. The same thing is true for these one-on-ones. So let's go down the hit the ground running fallacy a little bit, because I hear this from a lot of business owners. I hear it from a lot of hiring managers. We want to bring you in and we want you to hit the ground running. And that hit the ground running means I don't have a plan for you. I don't know exactly what you're going to do for 40 hours, but I'm banking on your past experience and the resume that you put together that you are going to hit the ground running. 20% leave within 45 days when they don't feel supported. Replacing an employee cost. This is the one that gets me every time. Replacing an employee costs 30 to 150%. Another study shows that it's 133% of their annual salary, depending on their role. Just imagine this. Turnover is the biggest expense in your business that you never will get an invoice for. Turnover is the biggest expense in your business that you will never receive an invoice for. Keep that in mind when you start to go through that cycle of, well, we just hire them and we can't get them to stick. Companies with poor onboarding see lower engagement scores by 50%. I think it's really important to see this because we already know, as a country with over 100,000 business owners surveyed and 100,000 businesses surveyed and over 1 million employees surveyed, we know that 33% of our workforce is engaged. We also know that 67% are disengaged or actively disengaged, meaning they're pulling from the business. So companies with poor onboarding see a lower engagement of 50%. So you're taking a subset of a subset just by having a lack of structure. And if it feels like I'm trying to sell you on the value proposition of onboarding and having a plan and being prepared, you're catching on. I am. A weak onboarding process hurts employer brand, making it harder and more expensive to recruit high quality candidates. We work largely with small businesses. And when I say small businesses, I'm saying from about $250,000 in revenue to about $10 million in revenue year over year. So we're talking about anywhere from one employee to about 20 employees. Somewhere in there is kind of the sweet spot of our our group of businesses. And what I would caution you is a lot of times we think, well, nobody knows who we are. We're just a small fish in a big pond. Recruiting is already difficult because you're swimming upstream for talent that you need to inspire and engage in the value proposition of what it looks like to be on your team. You don't need to take away from your employer brand even more by having either a subpar or non-existent journey for the candidates to come through or an onboarding plan for them to experience. One of the biggest differentiators I think we have as a company, and we're just under a year and a half at this point, but man, I will tell you that of the team members that we've brought on, everybody so far, cross fingers, has said, man, the onboarding for this company is something that I've never experienced before in my life. And I don't say that to pat myself on the back, but AJ talks about it a lot in that we don't practice what we preach what we practice. And I will say that it is one of the most gratifying things that I get to experience when we have new team members that say, when I signed up to be a part of a startup culture and I thought it was going to be this, and it's you guys have already thought through all of the things that I had questions around. That's incredibly impactful, and we want to have each and every one of you as our clients be able to develop those same levels of resources and transparency with your team. Failing to onboard failure to launch. I'm a big chick flick guy. So failure to launch, if you know the reference, you know the reference. But failing to onboard well isn't just a missed opportunity with your people. It creates a compounding problem in your business. You have high turnover, slower productivity, disengagement, and damage to your employer brand. I can't emphasize that enough. And I will tell you this, the slower productivity, the average onboarding or productivity cycle for a small to medium-sized business, an employee entering that is 6 to 9 months. That is an eternity in business. When you enter All True and we start to build out these resources for you, our goal is to, depending on the role, have a 2 to 4, maybe 6, depending on the complexity of the role, but a 2 to 6 week onboarding plan where we're pulling time out of tomorrow, putting it into today, and allowing people to understand what they do, why they do it, who they're doing it with, and then transfer ownership of that role in real time. I think we would all agree, whether it's a show of hands, depending on what your show of excitement is, if you could transfer ownership into the next generation of your business through that new team member, you want to transfer ownership. You don't like to, I'll use a dirty term, but you don't want to babysit that person. My contention with that is I only hire adults. And so if you are on our team and I have hired you, we only hire adults. And so I have an expectation that I can treat you as such, and I can hold you to the expectations of an adult. So tactical versus adaptive performance. And this is where we're going to get into more of the culture building elements of this training. But tactical performance, let's define that term, tactical performance, or TP. The ability to execute with consistency, quality, and efficiency on known tasks. How many tasks in your business have you done more than 15 times? If the answer is more than one, this is where you need to implement SOPs, standard operating procedures, or what we call best practice execution plans. If you do something repetitively over and over and over, and then you come in and you bring that next team member in that you want to, oh man, I'm gonna delegate this, which gives me agita just thinking about the word. But I just want to delegate these things to them. But everything in your business lives inside of your head. You're not ready to delegate. So the ability to execute with consistency, meaning if Kirk does it today, Kirk 2.0 can do it tomorrow at 80% capacity, reviewing that process, has 80% competency to deliver the quality and the efficiency of those tasks. Some examples of this is meeting revenue targets. How do we go from hitting a benchmark, which is a one-time event, to making that benchmark a watermark, meaning it's the low target moving forward? In order to do that, you have to create revenue targets that you're able to duplicate or repeat 3 times over, and then it becomes a watermark. We're not going behind that, we're just going up. We create a new benchmark, we strive for that, and then we go for it. And then we follow the SOP on how to get to the thing, whether that's a sales target or a delivery target. Maybe it's an execution of a deliverable on a project. But delivering products on time. These are things that are very predictable in our business, but we want consistency. This is tactical performance. So as we go into this, what's the stretch? Because we got to stretch before we run. The stretch. Owners must build clear systems, goals or targets, and accountability to ensure baseline success. Many times we walk into a business and 90% of the business, 90% of the equity, and 90% of the intellectual property lives inside of 1 to 2 business owners. That is not sellable or scalable. If everything lives in your head, start taking inventory of it. The stretch is we have to have systems, we have to have process, we have to have goals and targets for people to see their success inside of our business. The misstep, if overemphasized, creates robotic execution, meaning I've also seen the converse of this principle where we have systems and processes that we're managing. We build systems, we build process, but then we remove the human execution side of it, and we get this very robotic execution or transactional execution of it, to where if everything goes perfectly, everything is great. But when things don't go to plan, people freeze. They get analysis paralysis. They're not able to execute outside of the SOP. They don't know how to create or iterate inside of the framework that you've created. So 1 is good, 2 is good, 3 is good. Overdoing it, you've gone too far. So the misstep really is just the overemphasis of living and dying by process with the exclusion of creativity and people. So let's move into the adaptive performance, which is something on the other side of this TP. So adaptive performance, or AP. Let's define this one: the ability to adjust, innovate, and problem solve in uncertainty or change. We know that uncertainty and change is inevitable in our business. It's inevitable in life, but it's for sure inevitable in our business. Sometimes we have to pivot based on market conditions. We have to pivot sometimes based on revenue targets, or the, the delta between our revenue target and our production. How many of us would agree that having a culture with adaptive performers in it, where they have the ability to adjust, innovate, problem solve, iterate on the process? So we're not getting away from the process, that tactical, but we are creating this space that they're able to move and maneuver. They're able to, as team members, respond to shifting customer needs, solving unexpected problems, which are going to happen. Whether you're coming into this training in the construction space, or IT space, or plumbing, or home services of some sort, you're coming into this from an industry that requires people, has unexpected changes, and that you need people that have a framework but are able to iterate inside of that framework. So we want people that can take initiative inside of kind of that fence post. So let's go into the stretch. We must create safe to fail environments where employees can experiment, collaborate, and share ideas. We talked about this throughout Leaders Eat Last, but we have to create these safety nets, these environments that allow people to understand that the threat is coming from outside and not from within. If the only threat that your team members experience is from within, meaning they're shielded or they're sheltered by your umbrella of ownership from all of the things that are ailing or coming against the business, you're doing them a disservice. If all of the threats, all of the chaos is coming from within, you're doing them a disservice. We have to create these safe to fail, and failure is kind of a term that I I feel like, and this is something that I talk about quite a bit. I believe in my heart of hearts, the only way to fail is to quit. It's the only time you're actually going to fail. Anything else, we can fall down, we can stumble, we can fail in a moment. But if we don't quit, we're simply taking in the data, we're going to make adjustments, make iterations, and continue on. We need to create an environment where people are willing to experiment and collaborate and share ideas. In our one-on-one format, which we'll get into in future trainings, but in the one-on-one format, I have a place in there for new eyes. I'm going to pause right here and kind of talk through new eyes. New eyes is ideas, innovations, iterations. It's new eyes, but it's also new physical eyes. So when I bring in a new team member, at the end of that onboarding, we go through a new hire survey of sorts. It's a conversation, but I want to leverage new eyes in our environment. We've been doing things a certain way for a certain length of time, and maybe we see things a certain way because we're the only ones looking at it. Leverage new eyes in your business. They're seeing things that maybe you've looked over, or maybe things have changed outside of your business, and then they're bringing new eyes inside of your business. But creating this conversation from the very beginning of what are you seeing, and then creating a platform, a relationship to where they can bring things to light that they can help you understand, hey, maybe we do need to update this onboarding plan or these resources that we're providing or something that they're seeing in that first 30, 60 days of their experience with your organization. The misstep, the trip, if you will, if ignored, the business stagnates. Employees wait for instructions, competitors outpace innovation, and resilience is low in crisis. Show of hands in the chat, in the comments, how many times have you wished that you had employees or team members that wouldn't wait for you to instruct them on the step by step by step thing to do when things don't go exactly the way that they should have gone? It's it's alarming, it's frustrating, but here's the gravity. It's our fault as business owners when we don't create an environment for them to be able to think. One thing that we will never do is tell you what to think. Not as advisors, not as confidants, not as friends, not as consultants. We're not gonna tell you what to think, but we will teach you how to think through problems, challenges, issues, opportunities. And so we need to do that same thing with our team members. We need to build our strategies to where we're not allowing that stagnation. Now, I will tell you that uh, water is something that I love. I love to be out on the water. I love to be out on my paddleboard. I love to be, uh, okay, you can't tell anybody this, but when I'm on my paddleboard, I sing so loud and I'm out on the lake and nobody can hear me. And it's great because of my singing, probably fish are dying. I'm sorry. I apologize about that. But I sing so loud. It's like my happy place. The other side of that coin, stagnant water stinks. And it doesn't just stink for stinking's sake. It stinks because it's growing in a negative direction. It's no longer good for drinking. It's no longer good for enjoyment. So if we ignore our team's ability to be an adaptive performer, we're allowing our culture to get into this stagnant state where it's like, holy smokes. I wish somebody would come up with an idea that I don't have to say, that I don't have to implement. And I can tell you right now, being in an environment of high performers don't trade one for the other. Tactical performers versus adaptive performers, they don't trade them. The tactical performance, those performance run the business today. The adaptive performance is that forethought ahead of time that builds the business for tomorrow. We always talk, are you working in the business or on the business? And it's so cliche. It's almost to the point to where you could come to ignore it. Oh, they're just saying, I need to work on my business versus just in it. But the reality of it is if you are only working in your business, your head's down, your head's in the sand, you're not going to see what's going on. You need the eyes and ears of your team members up. You need them looking around. You need them to be able to identify those opportunities, the areas within the framework of the business structure, those SOPs, in order to iterate and innovate and be able to play a little bit, if you will. So why people perform? Leaders create conditions. I want to rest on that real quick. I won't spend a lot of time here. But I have talked to so many business owners over the years that don't enjoy the business that they own. They don't enjoy the work that they're doing anymore. I am a steadfast believer that we either have culture by design or by default. We don't have a third option. There's no option where it exists where you don't have an environment, you don't have a culture. The ones that are by default are the ones that you don't know how you got there, you don't know how to get out of it. But there again, you you may be in a default culture that you actually enjoy, but you can't scale because you don't know how you did it. Whereas if we design the culture, it is around our ethos, our core beliefs as a person, as a leader, as a business. And so we do this through mission, vision, and core values. So as we think through why people perform and leaders create conditions, think through it as the framework of mission, vision, core values, but then going deeper into the three positive motives. The three P's are play, purpose, and potential. Play. Let's define this. Work done for its own enjoyment. How many times have we ever said, hey, even if I wasn't getting paid, I'd still want to do this. Maybe it's a hobby of yours right now. Maybe it's not your business. Maybe if um, maybe golf is your hobby of choice, or woodworking for me, or paddleboarding, or whatever it is. You would do it regardless of compensation. You don't have to be paid to do a hobby. But this idea of building an environment around play, it's this idea of working in a curiosity, a creativity. We're solving problems, we're solving difficult challenges or puzzles. We're engaged at a different level than just donkey on a grindstone, let's make grits. One, that needs to be a t-shirt. But two, that is what we're doing when we're just making people come in and do the same thing every day. They're not getting a different result. We're not growing, we're not shrinking, we're just kind of in this thing. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. The leader application, give team members space to experiment. Give them an environment to test ideas, approach challenges in new ways. One of the fun things that I did, this was a couple of years back, but we would sit in strategy meetings, and strategy meetings had grown, I'll call them stale, stagnant for argument's sake, but they were just kind of going through the motions. We knew our agenda was the same every week. We'd do it, and an hour and a half later, we'd talk through everything that we needed to talk through as far as client wins or client challenges, things that we needed to overcome for the quarter or the month. It just kind of got stale. One of the things that I introduced to that environment was this idea of just playing. Um, One of the things that we would do is after each client, we would do a strategy, and we'd take 30 to 45 minutes through each client. But after every one of them, the whole team, all five, six of us, would drop down and do push-ups. And we would do 25 push-ups or 10 push-ups, wherever you were in your fitness journey. But we would engage some other modality, and that would charge us for that next hill. But maybe for you, it's putting in hackathons or brainstorming sessions, things that are not directly tied to their job or their role, but it's an idea session. It's just an opportunity to think out loud in a safe place where you're not going to be condemned for a bad idea, or you're not going to be necessarily celebrated for a real winner. But it's just an idea kind of, yeah, just get it out. You got ideas. How many times have you, as an employee, before becoming either a leader or an owner, you had ideas for the business that you came? out of. A lot of times that's why you are a business owner in the first place, is you were working for somebody doing something that you loved in an inefficient way that you're like, I could do this better and make more money at it if I just do it myself. Introduce that same level of the motive spectrum to your environment with play. Moving into purpose. So let's define this: work that aligns with personal values or makes a meaningful impact. It's really easy for us to say, okay, we've got core values. Those are generated largely from the business owners. So maybe you have 5 to 7 core values that you run your life and your business by. But aligning that purpose with something bigger than your team members, it's bigger than building the house, it's bigger than building the app or the website or the blueprinted pipe fittings or whatever it is that you've been called to do. Aligning those personal values with some meaningful impact. Who is this going to touch? And then the application for you: consistently connect daily tasks to the big mission, the big vision. How does this project, how does this deliverable help our customers achieve X? Whatever that is. Maybe for you, it's getting to that remodel. Maybe it's, being able to put a bathroom in the backyard for the pool house. Whatever it is, I want my plumbers, I want my technicians, I want my employees, I want my team members to understand that they're not just installing a toilet for toilet's sake or building an app for just an app's sake, but they're touching lives on the other end of each one of those projects, each one of those initiatives. That has purpose, that has impact. And then potential. This is often overlooked because we just need people to do their job. One of the worst benefits I've ever heard of is when I go through a new client discovery meeting. It's what benefits are you currently offering? Well, we don't offer insurance, but the biggest benefit I offer is a paycheck every 2 weeks. That's not a benefit. That is an obligation. Potential. How do we show up? Potential is work that is seen as a stepping stone to personal and professional growth. Each one of your team members, whether they've articulated it out loud or they've just held it in their mind, they have personal, they have professional, they probably even have financial goals in mind for what they want to get out of this. But if we don't show them what the potential is inside of our business, what success looks like inside of our business, they will drift. They will look and see, okay, my buddy Bobby over here, he's doing the same thing I'm doing, but he's taken 2 additional roles over the last 3 years, and I'm still doing the same thing. I may need to go look at ABC company to work over there because Bobby's growing. We need to show clear career paths. For us, it's top performer elevation plans, because you cannot delegate until you elevate. You have to elevate your people into something that is documented process. They need to be able to execute it at an 80%, a solid B effort before you delegate it to them. But I want each one of those people to be able to see where I enter and where I can be are 2 different places. And whether I'm a $2 million business or I'm a $25 million business, I want to see that growth path to where, okay, if I start here, if I apply myself, if I work hard, if I do the things that are in my job description, I deliver on those objectives, I can elevate in this organization and I can be a part of the growth strategy. But for every positive, there's a negative. So let's go into that a little bit. Don't want to spend too much time on the negative, but I do want to bring it up because the 3 Ds are pressure, emotion, and economic. So these are the three drainers on your environment. Pressure, working out of guilt or fear of disappointing others. One of the top 5 fears articulated in survey is the fear of failure. We need to grapple with that reality. Our people, in large part, and we know this, 8 out of 10 of them grapple with this fear of failure or people pleasing. If your environment is predicated on the pressure that we put on people out of guilt or fear to perform, we're not getting the top performance out of them. The emotional drain, working out of frustration, resentment, or anger. If you've been in any level of relationship, friendship, family ship, kinship, whatever it looks like, whatever ship you're sailing in, you've had the emotional condition a part of that relationship. You've experienced working out of frustration because you have to, or you've worked out of, maybe not productively, but you've worked out of resentment or anger. Hopefully you're on the other side of that. But you have to understand that your people, if put in the wrong environment, they're working out of that frustration. They're not going to be top performers. And then economic. This is the people on our team that are simply working for the paycheck. They show up, they get their 40 hours or their 37.5 hours, and then they clock out. They don't think about work the whole weekend, and then they come back and we get probably subpar experience from them moving forward. So how do we do this? We have to balance the insights, the positives versus the negatives. Balancing these insights over intent. The great thing about us as humans is we love to give ourselves credit for our intentions. We do not afford other people the power of our intentions. Meaning, how many times have you caught yourself, or maybe you'll catch yourself now, but you know your intentions weren't to harm this person, to hurt their feelings, to do whatever it is, and yet that was the outcome. I hurt my team members' feelings when I said XYZ. I didn't intend for that, so they shouldn't be hurt by that. But reverse that. If they hurt you or they hurt somebody else on your team, but they have a different set of intentions than the outcomes, we often don't afford them the ability to have those intentions. We assume the worst. We need to balance the insights, the data, now that we have it, versus the intent. So going to insights. Insights, we have positive and we have negative motives. We have to understand this. The 3 Ps: engagement, fuel, drive, sustainable, high performance. These 3 Ps, these 3 pieces that are inside of our environment, if we bake them in, play, purpose, and potential, those are the lifeblood of a productive, high-performing team. We also have to grapple with the performance drain that happens in the 3 Ds, which is the pressure, emotion, and economic. Short-term compliance, yes, they will do exactly what you say because everything that they want is on the other side of your pin, the paycheck. But long-term burnout, turnover, and stagnation is where you're going to end up. I will say that the worst nation in the world to live in right now is the nation of stagnation. So don't take up citizenship and stagnation. Let's use the time that we have left. I'd love to get into a bit of an activity, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop a worksheet into the chat. This is something that you'll get a little bit of a sneak peek to before we drop it in the community. But because you're on the live call, you'll get it first. But let's jump into a little bit of an activity. I want you to think through Think about your team, your current team that you have right now. What is the tactical performance? So think through, how would your team handle both of these scenarios? Delivering 1,000 units, a big project on time. There's structure, there's process, there's probably a lot of predictability. How would they respond to that? Would they execute flawlessly on that? But take your same team and put that filter of adaptive performance on it. You're ready to deliver that project, that website, or the outcome, the deliverable. And then the customer throws you a curveball. They demand shifts. They want rework. They want all these different things. How does your team respond in that scenario? How do you respond in that scenario? I'm going to challenge you to think through these two scenarios with your current team. Thinking through, what is it that I would respond with, and what would they respond with? Reflection point. Why do my employees show up every day? Which motive dominates? This can be unnerving, and I want to acknowledge that, because maybe you're coming into this training and you've never heard any of this. I'm so happy you're here. Maybe you're coming into this and you've heard something around this. I'm happy you're here. I want you to reflect on that point, though. Why do my employees show up every day? Is it because we have a compelling mission? Is it because we have an inspiring vision? Do they just don't want to let me down? Maybe they're just showing up for a paycheck. What I'd like you to do is be really, really honest with yourself after making this reflection, but place your culture somewhere along that continuum of play, purpose, potential, pressure, emotional, or economic. Use the law of averages, but be honest. Be objective as much as possible. Identify one shift you can make to increase the 3Ps. Maybe it's rewriting team goals to connect to purpose. I will say that almost everything that I do connects to one of our team members' goals specifically. So if I'm talking to finance, this is what we need to do. This is why we need to do it. I'm tying that back to their drivers, the things that drive them. Maybe it's scheduling or investing in some learning and development. Maybe it's creating space for play. I'm open to whatever it looks like, but I want people to have an incredibly fun time doing what they do, because I know that if we can create an environment where people, maybe they don't like making a million calls in a day, or sending out proposals, or building marketing dashboards, or whatever the thing is, it becomes less about the thing and it becomes the fun of the impact. It's a game that we start to play together. So, like any good coach, I'm going to have a final pep talk before we go to the blocks. Key thought: we project how we reflect. Let me dig into that a little bit. We project how we reflect. The things that you're reflecting on, the things that you're putting into your mind, the things that you're allowing to take residence in your heart are the things that you project. If you put good things in there, you're going to get good things out. If you are going to reflect and think through all the negative things that are happening in your business, or in your process, or with your people, or in your community, or in the country, or in the world, you're going to project that. I'm not saying ignore it, but be mindful of where you allow your mind to be reflective, to think, because the same things that you're putting in, some iteration of that is coming out. It's coming out to your your co-owner, your leadership team, a spouse, your church group, your community group, whoever it is that you're around. So control the inputs to control the outputs. Then ask questions. Why my culture may be stuck? Am I being too tactical? Maybe it's too many drains on my people. Think through that. Allow that question to seep in. What shifts can I make personally as a leader? This is where we have to be very honest and objective with ourselves. John Maxwell talks about me leadership versus we leadership, leading myself as an individual before I cascade and lead others. So, what shifts can I make personally as a leader this week? How aligned is my leadership style with play, purpose, and potential that will drive growth, retention, and adaptability? And have I stretched my leadership to gain the edge with my team? I hope that this was a powerful first step and first stage of this training. I appreciate all of you being here. I want this to be an engaging process of where we learn to really help each other, but help our team in designing a culture that we love to be a part of. So with that, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.